Too often, people with suicidal feelings struggle alone. Suicide is the second leading cause of death for individuals between the ages of 10 and 34. It's time to break the silence and start talking about mental health.
I'm Officer Michael Bloom.
I'm Officer Samantha Lasham.
And we're with the Fargo Police Department in Fargo, North Dakota. Today, we are bringing you a documentary focusing on mental health awareness and suicide prevention.
We're going to provide you with 3 different testimonies of people who have been personally affected by suicide. We hope to bring you some education and resources if you or somebody you know is struggling with suicidal thoughts.
You're not meant to struggle alone. Right now in your community, there are people available to you if you just reach out and ask.
This is Break the Silence, a film made by the Fargo Police Department.
So we met at the office. We both worked together at the same architecture firm. And we worked together, honestly, for the first 10 years.
The late nights in the office, Liam was with me every single one of those nights. We were always together.
Liam would run around, he'd play, at people's desks, and then everyone was totally cool with it. It's like he was just this bright light in the office. One of his friends sent a note about the fact that he was new to a school, and I think it was third grade. And Liam was the one kid that came up to him and introduced himself. And that was Liam in a nutshell. I mean, he was just the ultimate friend.
I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia. It was me, my brother, and my mom. 6th grade year, I moved up an hour and a half north of Atlanta to Pickens County. They had the middle school football team, and me and my brother joined it. We had all the support in the world. Coaches would keep us humble, make sure we're working, keeping us right in the classrooms. I always had my mom and my dad there supporting us and letting us know how good we really are in football. My grandpa would record every game. I remember Saturdays waking up, going to play, and then we'll come back home, watch the game. So we fell in love with it. In college, I got recruited from Minnesota, playing and being around my teammates and things like it was amazing.
I really enjoyed growing up in Colorado. I think we were really surrounded by a lot of people. We did a lot of outdoor family activities, lots of skiing. We did a lot of road trips, which really bonded all of us, for sure. It was really fun to grow up camping and hiking, traveling. My sister Katie was my best friend. My mom passed away about 6 years ago, so Katie definitely filled that mom role for me. She loved photography. She was super smart, and I don't know if she necessarily enjoyed going to school, but she really enjoyed getting good grades and working really hard. I just loved being around her. She was truly my best friend.
If I had to list 1,000 things I was concerned about, it was Liam. Mental health and suicide was not even on that list.
Not even close to being on that radar. He didn't suffer from anxiety or depression, even a little bit. He wasn't even a moody kid.
Very few things really scared him. And he was always there for his friends and his family.
In college, I had a great freshman year. Sophomore year is when I broke my foot, but it wasn't nothing crazy. Junior year is honestly where I felt like my depression and anxiety started kicking in. I tore my first ACL in practice. I remember laying down, I remember crying a little bit. First ACL, I just heard a big pop. And all my teammates after practice, they're coming in, letting me know like it's gonna be good. So one of my teammates grabbed my phone because I was getting ready to call people, let them know, I just tore my ACL. So when I grabbed my phone, my Uncle Pat, and he was blowing my phone up. He told me that my mom was in the emergency room and she's not looking good and she just stopped breathing. A few days after the funeral, I ended up leaving back up here to college. So I'm working hard every day, battling mentally and physically, getting my knee right. Going into my senior year, first game back, broke off for a run, and when they make a cut, boom, tore my right ACL.
Something right there wasn't right on that last cut.
4 or 5 months out of my second ACL being torn, I'm doing a running back drill in practice, and then boom, I re-tore my right ACL again. So I tore both of my ACLs 3 times within 10 months. After that, honestly, I was done. So mentally, it was a battle there. My whole life, who have I been? A football player. My whole life, a football player. Like, this is all I've been doing. The Giants, the Vikings, the 49ers, they literally said he's a great football player, but honestly, we can't touch him because he's torn his ACL too many times. I just didn't know what to do. I was lost.
Katie wanted it to be summer. It was early spring, so it was like still winter kind of, and she hated the way it was outside. It's not really something that would be a red flag, but now looking back on it, I can know that it was for her at least, but everything just seemed normal. It was really shocking. No one even saw it coming whatsoever.
We had fajitas that night for supper. Mm-hmm. We sat around the table, we laughed. We were joking around about going to Elizabeth and Selma, my daughter, have a horse, and we need to go out and take care of the horse and feed the horse. And we were, kind of doing the finger on the nose, not it. I don't want to go with mom to the barn and work.
He didn't get his finger on his nose fast enough, and I looked at him, I'm like, so you get to go with me? And he just starts laughing.
Yeah. I volunteered to go. And when we walked out the door, our daughter was home with him, and we wanted to make sure that he knew that she needed to read for school. So he was making his ice cream and laughing, and we said, goodbye, we love you. And
I love you guys.
Came home.
That's what you heard me say.
Came home a little over an hour later, and our world had changed.
We had this train that runs right behind the apartment, and I remember I literally just started thinking about all the bad stuff. All of these things are literally just flowing in my head, and it got to a point to where I was like, I don't want to be here anymore. And I literally remember saying that I wanted to go be with my mom. The next thing I know is like I'm this close to this train and it's just moving. Like I'm literally this close, like staring at this train. And I remember like waking up, like something snapped me out of it. I told myself like, what are you doing? As soon as I go to turn away from the train, it smacks me right in the head. I literally popped up off the ground like nothing happened. And when I got inside the apartment, I remember looking in the mirror and I was like, whoa, 2 teeth knocked out. My lip was hanging like all the way down here. My face was super swollen. I was just bleeding everywhere. And I was speechless. I couldn't even say anything. I didn't even say a word. We called the ambulance. And as soon as I laid down, I just passed out.
We had a 3-story house. She was on the top floor and I was on all the way in the basement. So at about 10:30, 11 maybe, I was up watching TV in my bed, and she had come in and was saying goodnight to me and everything and saying, I won't see you till tomorrow, so goodnight, which it was just not normal for her to come down at 10:30 and say goodnight because I won't see you till tomorrow. We saw each other every day. Like, she took me to school, so she was saying goodbye. Now that I know, I could have seen it, but I think for anyone in that moment, it's like impossible almost to tell.
Kids like that can fall through the cracks. The pressures that they have might be silent pressures. We look back at, to see if he'd been journaling anything or if he'd been searching for anything online, and there were no red flags.
And he was always a self-advocate, talking to teachers if he didn't understand something in school.
We had an open conversation. We never talked about suicide. We didn't think it was something that was a concern. And we've talked to parents since, and we've talked to kids, and we said, talk about it. Have the hard conversation. And not from a point of desperation or fear, but from a point of hope.
When I woke up in the hospital, the doctor was finishing up stitching my lip. Sunday, I woke up that morning, and I remember being so lost. I didn't know who to turn to, and I'm a man of faith. You know, I believe in God, and the only person that I could turn to was him, because I know he's gonna have an answer for me that nobody else can give me. So I got a text from my best friend, and the message from my best friend says, I love you, brother, and you're still here for a reason. You have a purpose. You're not done yet.
Liam lived big for 15 years. We look back at it and there's a reason he lived big. This was the plan. And I'd do anything to have him back. But if we can't have him back, our mission is to help others.
It was really important to me to share my sister's story because of how happy my sister was. No matter how happy a life they have, they could always be feeling something that you don't see. You can't always see mental health.
I truly believe that my purpose on earth is to tell my story. I want to be there for athletes. When they feel like their sports are over and it's coming to an end, I want to be there to let them know that they're more than just an athlete.
If I were to talk to someone who is seriously contemplating suicide, I would just want to say that it's not worth it. Life is more than this, more than the sadness you're feeling right now.
It's not unnatural to have feelings of doubt. You can tell your parents or reach out to somebody, because there is a lot of hope that you can get from talking to someone that can help you get through those darkest times.
Many of us have a lot of hard questions around mental health that never get answered. So we're gonna bring some people together to have a conversation about it.
And really, this conversation is just to bring some clarity and to debunk some myths surrounding mental health, as well as to provide some guidance and education for you or someone you know who's feeling depressed or is having suicidal thoughts. We want to help you guys take the next step.
Senior year's been really hard. I've always done very good in school, but with COVID and everything, it's just been really hard. I've been in the counseling office at least 3 times a week.
For me, I feel like finding the one adult that you can trust in the building is that's more important than a counselor.
Yeah.
For me, it's just I just go and talk to my coaches, because they're all in the coaches' office and they're both there together, and I just sit down and just talk to them, and that's way better than counseling.
You know, if you can't make a connection with your counselor or you're feeling like it's not going somewhere, find another adult. That's totally perfectly okay to find somebody else to trust and to be able to talk to that you can get to know on a more personal basis.
So where do you guys think that all these mental health issues, what are some factors that will play into mental health, and why are there so many teens struggling because of it? I just think that the door needs to be open more in order to talk about this stuff.
There are a lot of factors that contribute to mental health, especially related to suicide and suicidal thoughts. I think sometimes if a teenager is experiencing a lot of adverse life experiences or adverse childhood experiences, that definitely can be a big factor that plays into mental health. And I also think stressful events, so whether it's family conflict going at home, or you don't feel supported, or childhood trauma, that definitely can be a big factor. Sometimes kids and teenagers experience those suicide ideation, but they didn't go through any sort of traumatic experience. And sometimes that's just because we may be more susceptible in our genetics.
Why do you guys think that suicide is so hard for people to talk about or open up about if they're feeling that way?
I think one of the factors is that stigma of feeling like people are going to judge you, or people are going to think or assume something of you, can make it really hard to talk about.
It's hard to go to somebody and say that I need help. A lot of times people don't want to bring it up because it seems like then I'm weak or I'm broken, and that's not at all the case. There's a lot of your peers that are feeling the exact same way.
Personally, it was really hard for me to open up and ask for help because I had trouble admitting to myself or really realizing that I was having these thoughts, and I didn't really want to believe that it was happening to me.
It's not always really obvious either. If I came in here today and I had a cast on my leg because I broke my leg and I was trying to get up onto the stage, you'd probably come and ask me if I needed help because it was obvious that I was struggling, right? It's not always obvious with mental health. People aren't as likely to reach out to you and ask, can I help you? And so I think if we did that more often, it would help.
I agree with that a lot.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I think that we need to break the stigma, like you said, because people shouldn't be afraid to go up and tell someone and ask for help.
Where could we go in like the heat of the moment if we're really struggling to find professional help?
If you have a caring adult, or if you have a friend that you know you can go to that will maybe talk to an adult with you, if you have those people in your circle that you can reach out to, I think it's going to be much more helpful to you than calling a suicide hotline. However, I know that there are people that have really utilized those lines and feel like they've been helpful.
So if a person was having suicidal thoughts, what would happen if they were sent to a hospital? And would they be taken away from their family, from their friends? What would be happening to them?
It's really going to depend on where the circumstances are at that time. And so coming in to the hospital doesn't have to be a scary experience. The first step is going to be talking to a doctor about what's going on, what are your thoughts and your feelings, and then we kind of figure out what pathway we want to take from there. We can sign a safety contract or speak with your parents or caregivers and release you just a couple hours later. If you've already done self-harm or have intent to harm yourself, we may need to find you an acute psychiatric facility to get the help that you need.
How would a person know if they should go to the hospital?
If you're having thoughts that you just can't seem to pass and you don't have somebody there to help you work through that, the bravest thing you can do is come to the emergency department where we can keep you safe.
When you end up going to see a mental health provider or a psychotherapist, if we know what's going on beforehand, that you are suffering from suicidal thoughts, it is important to assess the level of suicidal thoughts, because some kids just have the suicidal thoughts, but they don't have necessarily a plan, or they don't have intent to want to harm themselves, but they kind of have those passive thoughts of, I wouldn't really care if I wouldn't wake up tomorrow. And so as a mental health provider, it's really my job to assess, where are you at with those thoughts right now? And if it gets to a point where it is serious, where there is intent to harm yourself, that we create steps for you to be able to stay safe, and that probably will involve the caregiver. Even though it may be hard to talk about that with your parents, it's so important that they know so that they can be able to be there to support you. And it's my job as the therapist to be able to navigate that conversation, right? So you don't have to do that by yourself.
So if I know someone who's struggling, like say a close friend, and they haven't really brought up the thought of suicide, but they've showed signs, is it okay for me to ask them if they've thought about suicide, or is that too much?
It is completely okay to ask them directly. I think sometimes we get scared to ask those questions because we worry, well, if we ask it, are they going to want to do it then? Or is it going to increase the odds of them doing it? And that's actually, the research doesn't suggest that at all. Actually being able to ask that question directly and have them be able to open up and talk about it actually may reduce the risk. And so you can absolutely ask that direct question. I think in terms of what can you say after that, is just to be able to listen to what they have to say, let them talk, and thank them, validate them. Just simple words to let them know that you are there, you do care, and you want to be able to help them through it. But I think part of that is trying to connect them to that trusted adult so that that's not put on you to have to navigate that alone, because that's a really hard thing to navigate by yourself. If they're in a place where they do have a plan or they do want to harm themselves, being able to speak up and get an adult involved as soon as possible. I think sometimes a friend can maybe feel like, well, maybe it's not my place, or they told me not to tell anyone and I don't want them to get mad at me. But I always frame it as, would you rather have your friend mad at you, or would you rather have them be gone? And so it's really important to speak up.
How can we move forward, and basically what is the next step to help everyone with mental health?
I think that you all have a really unique opportunity to be leaders at your schools. You guys really have a lot of power to have these really great conversations to open up the topic.
It's like everybody has a role in it. And everybody has to be educated with their role first. And the first step in that role is just knowing what mental health is. And right now in school, like some kids who don't know what mental health is, and they can't help themselves and can't help anybody else around them. I feel like the first step in that is probably just educating what mental health is in schools.
Yeah. At my school, me and a few of my friends, we made this club called Mental Health Matters. We went to our counselors and we just said, we feel that we need more than just counselors. We want to make a mental health support group. Well, then the principal was so on top of it, and he said that we should do school announcements about it. So I think with my school, it's a good next step because we're going to be having students support each other.
The most important thing is for you guys to be healthy on all aspects of life, emotionally, mentally, physically, and that is our job, is to be able to make that easier for you.
I want to make sure that all the students in my school and the other schools in the district feel supported. So we have work to do, and I've certainly taken lots from this conversation, so I really appreciate you guys so much.
So as we come to a close today, we want you to know that help is available. We care about you, and we want to help you get to whatever place you need to get to be in a safe place.
We came together today because we saw the effects of suicide on our community, and we want to do our part to help prevent the next suicide or even the next person that might contemplate suicide.
All we want you to really know is that there's resources available to you and or someone you care about today. If you need assistance, you can always reach out to First Link 211, and someone will be available for you 24 hours a day. If you're not in this area but are watching this film, there's a National Suicide Hotline number which is shown below. You're a part of our family. We care about you and we want you to succeed. So please reach out for help if you're struggling today. Know that you're not alone, and know that there should be no shame to speak up if you're struggling.
If you're quiet, you can't get help.
Tell someone.
Be your own self-advocate. Stand up for yourself and be clear.
Help us come together and break the silence.
In the horizon.